Okay, so this is my robot. I've built it using an Arduino R3 board. This is actually a clone board, so this is not an official Arduino board. This is just a cheap Chinese, I believe, clone. Um, so basically the benefits of that is that obviously it's really cheap. It's only $3 compared to 30. The drawbacks, of course, are that it was difficult to set up. It doesn't work by default. You have to install some additional drivers. But overall, I'm very satisfied with everything I got here for this build. I ordered all these parts on a website called Banggood, which was really, really great for everything I needed. I was able to get this H-bridge here. This was around $5, and then the Bluetooth module, the HC06, was around $5 as well. Now the camera itself, I actually ordered off Amazon. And that was around $16. So realistically, this was the most expensive component in the build. So, and obviously the motors themselves down here were about like $2 each, and then the wheels were another $2 each. The main drawback with this current setup is the power. At the moment, as you can see, it's powered by 6 AA's and a 9 volt. The 9 volt powers the Arduino board, the camera, and the Bluetooth module, and the AA's power the motors. Now the problem with that is the 9 volt cannot supply enough power to the Arduino board, the camera, and the Bluetooth module for long enough, and eventually the camera or the Bluetooth module just cuts out eventually. Another problem is that the 6 AA's provide too much power for the motors. It's just more than they need, so it adds just unnecessary weight. And now what I've been doing is I've been putting this smartphone charger inside the robot, just like right here, and using the included USB cable to just power it that way, which has worked totally fine. But the only problem with that is that the AA's are heavy enough as it is, and this also is pretty heavy, so the robot just has trouble moving around on any surfaces that have maybe too much traction, like carpets, because the wheels, these little caster wheels down here, just get stuck. So ideally what I'd like to do is just cut out the secondary power source altogether and power the Arduino board and everything connected to it, like the camera and the Bluetooth module, just off these AA's. Okay, so if I go over the wiring of this build, you can see that there are quite a few wires coming from the H-bridge. And now basically these are all input wires. So basically they're receiving a signal from the Arduino, and they translate that into power for the motors. So basically how it works is you can see that there are 4 wires in the middle, right? And if you cut this in half, you have 2 on either side. Now basically these are like this controls the direction. So when one, like the white one on the left, for example, when that's off and the orange one on the left is on, say the motor turns right. And now when it's reversed, the motor will turn left. Now the yellow wire on the left, that controls the throttle, basically, of one of the motors. And the same applies to the other side. So if we look at the wiring on the Bluetooth module, you can see that there are 4 wires coming from it. 2 of those wires are input pins, as you can see here, and then the other 2 are just, positive and ground. So basically how it works is the TX pin and the RX pin on the Arduino board connect to the opposite pins on the Bluetooth module. So basically RX connects to TX, TX connects to RX. Now basically these just handle the data that the Bluetooth module gets from my smartphone and sends it to the Arduino board. So lastly, the thing we have here is the camera. So when I was originally building this, the video I was referencing for the Bluetooth module said that you needed to use the 5 volt pin and then use 2 resistors to basically limit the voltage to around 3.3 volts. I thought that was a little strange because, it might be difficult to see, but there's actually a 3.3 volt pin already on this board. So I thought, why not just use that? And so far it's worked. I'm not an engineer, so I have no idea. It'll probably blow up one of these days. But then that left me free to use the 5-volt pin to power the camera. So, I mean, that's just wired up pretty simply. Luckily, the connector it came with had this little adapter thing, which I was just kind of able to force the standard cables, just force them to connect to it. And then I just had it hooked up to, the 5-volt pin and ground, which works well. So, problems with this build, or what I would have done differently. Obviously the batteries, I've already mentioned. The portable charger is too clunky, and the 9-volt just doesn't last too long. The camera, one problem with this is that it was designed for FPV quads. So basically like a quadcopter or a drone, should I say. So if it's on a drone, it's moving very quickly through the air, and that keeps it air cooled. But the problem is when you have it on something that moves as slow as this, it gets very hot, and eventually the connection can get kind of spotty. So that's definitely not ideal, but it works. Now, one last thing I will say is that the software, the code I made for this robot, is really not very good. It works, but it could be a lot better. For one thing, I would like to make the robot be able to kind of turn while it's moving forward, because that's a big problem right now. You can move the robot forward, backwards, and then turn it, but those are all separate movements. And the only reason that's an issue is this robot is not perfectly, I guess, calibrated, I suppose you could say. So, I mean, you can see I've got rubber bands on the wheels to try to compensate for that, but it does drift around a lot while you're moving it forward. So if I had some way of just kind of steering it while you're moving it, I feel like that would work a lot better. Okay, well, without further ado, I suppose I will show some footage of it driving around. So as you can see, everything's on. This appears to be working. The Bluetooth module's on, and the camera's on, and those were the only real issues when you're powering it off a 9-volt, but hopefully this is just a fresh one, so it should last long enough to film the video. And this is just a generic Bluetooth controller app. It's worked really well for me. You do have to program it with the specific app you use in mind. I like this one because it was, easy to use. Let's see. I seem to be having some trouble finding the device, but hopefully this shouldn't take too long. There we go. Okay. So if we pair that, I apologize for the camera shake, by the way. The pin code is just 1234, just nice and easy. Okay, so as you can see, the HC06 is up here, which is nice. So it seems to be working thus far. Okay, awesome. So we have our little control interface there, which is nice. Okay. Oh, I forgot. Okay, so let's put that aside. So one other thing I should mention, I have this little receiver here. This is basically just, again, designed for FPV quads. The thing that's nice about this is that you can actually just essentially use it as a webcam. So you just connect it to your PC or your smartphone, because it does come with a micro USB to micro USB cable, which is nice. And then you can just open the camera app. Let me see. There. And there you have it. It's working just fine. So if we move the robot around, I mean, you can see it works. That's what it's got to do, I suppose. So let's put that down. Okay. Now, if we take our phone, you can see it's moving along pretty quickly, which is nice. There we got the Christmas tree in there, which is looking great. So there's a little bit of that kind of drifting I was talking about. It's just a little bit wonky. So this is, I kind of had a lot of fun with this, to be honest. because you can just drive around the hallway, you know. Let's go in here. So the connection definitely does get spotty after a while, particularly if you go in between walls or something, like, and you can tell the camera quality is just absolutely perfect as well. But you know, it's decent. I'm pretty impressed with how well this works. Wasn't expecting it to go as well as it did. Alright, let's return the robot. Oh, great driver, as you can tell. There we go. So yeah, I'd say it works pretty well. Haven't had any issues with it. It's been pretty fun, as I said. Let's see. So yeah.